Okay, this is the last little bit of content that has to be taught for this topic of finance. Remember, I told you your test is going to be in week 10, obviously during the double lesson of the Thursday. This interest-only loans and sinking funds is covered in exercise 8E. It must be done. It's not a DI section, so you can't practice it, only doing the DI. So let's get started. All the loans that we have considered so far are known as reducing balance loans, which are also known as principal and interest loans, which means the regular payment partly pays off some of the interest and partly pays off the principal until you owe nothing. Another option, and I could go onto a browser and go to BankSA and look up interest-only loans, is known as an interest-only loan. In such a loan, the repayments only pay off the interest you owe the bank, but not any of the principal. So what's going on there? In the real world, you can pay interest only, but only for a short time, like 5 years. Your book, your test, your exam, those questions, they assume interest only for the whole loan term. So you're probably sitting there wondering, if you don't pay back any of the principal, if you're only paying the interest, how does the principal get paid back? That's what we're going to talk about now in the mathematics side of things. So mathematically, with interest-only loans and sinking funds, what happens? Because the principal doesn't change, the regular repayments can be found using simple interest. Do you remember the very first lesson of this whole topic? I showed you simple interest, so it comes back right at the end. SI is equal to PRT, and then you divide that up according to the payment regularity. So what you'll find is an interest-only loan, the repayments tend to be smaller. Why is that? Because you're not paying back any of the debt. You're only paying interest. Also, because the principal is unchanging, at the end of the loan, you need to pay back the whole bloody principal in one go. So I'll give you time to get those two things and let that simmer in your head. We're talking about a loan that you only pay the interest, and then right at the end of that 30 years, you need to pay him back the principal all in one go. How do we deal with it? Well, I'll tell you what the textbook and SACE suggest. It's not realistic in real life, but you're going to answer questions like SACE and the textbook suggest. So just get these two highlighted points about the maths. So what does your textbook and SACE suggest? Your textbook and SACE suggest that a way to save up that principal that you have to pay back at the end is to regularly put money into a savings account known as the sinking fund. So the suggestion is you're paying off a loan interest only, and at the same time you're doing something else. You're putting money in an account called a sinking fund that will grow to the principal that you need at the end of the loan. So if I'm going to owe 500 grand at the end of the loan, and I'm not paying any of that off, I also make a savings account that's going to slowly build up to 500 grand after 30 years so that I can just use that money. Okay, that's the idea that SACE and your exams is suggesting. And then the only other consideration is the idea of book debt. The book debt or book value of the debt is the current difference between the original debt, your principal, and the current contents of the sinking fund being used to save up for that original debt. So get this formula down for the idea of book debt. This is one of those question types where it only really makes sense when you actually do a full example. So you can see how the ideas play out. So just get down to here to the formula for book debt, and I'll get back to you after. I'll scroll down so people can get the example. I'm going to make up a scenario involving the default home loan, but you're borrowing it interest only over 30 years, and at the same time you'll do a sinking fund to pay off the 500 grand at the end. Question?
Yeah. Do we get cheat sheet for this?
Yes. The only test that you get no cheat sheet for is right at the end. And when you start seeing the material that's being taught, you're going to be like, I understand why there's no cheat sheet for this. Okay? Everyone worries about it at the start of the year, but every year you start seeing the material and you're like, it's not too bad. Now, I'll let you get the example and the little parts of it. Did you? Sorry, my bad. Can I scroll down to the parts of the question now? So because there's two elements to this interest-only loan and sinking fund, there's a lot of elements to a question type there. It tends to be scaffolded like this as well in the exam when they've asked the question. They scaffold it with bits. What I might do here, because the the question parts, there's so many of them, and it's going to be hard to see it off the screen, is I'll answer in red underneath each. So it's a little easier to see. I'll answer in red. Find the monthly payments on the interest-only loan. What kind of, do I use TVM solver for simple interest, or do I use SI is equal to PRT for simple interest? Which SI. So if I want to know the amount of interest I pay on the interest-only loan, I'm using SI is equal to PRT. What's the principal being borrowed on the interest-only loan? 500 grand. Times by, what was the interest rate of the interest-only loan? Good, because in the SI is equal to PRT, you need to equate the rate as a decimal. Times by T. How long was my interest-only loan for? 30 years, okay? So 500 grand times 0.05 times by 30. So that interest-only loan, I'm going to pay $750,000 in interest over the life of the loan. But this is asking me, find the monthly payments. How many months are there in 30 years? Good. So you go 750 grand divided by 360 equals $20.83 to 2 decimal points. Do you agree that that monthly payment is smaller than the default home loan? The default home loan was $2,400. So you can see interest only, maybe it's going to save you a little bit on the payments. Right? I'll give you a couple of, 30 seconds or so. Can you get that working out, please, for find the monthly payments? Okay, part B is asking about the sinking fund. The sinking fund is an account. It's like an investment. So that's a TVM. N, sorry, I need to do it in red. So a TVM situation, N, I, PV, PMT, FV, PY, and CY. So let's look at this information about the sinking fund. What is the interest rate of the sinking fund?
5.
Sorry?
5.
No? What does it say here? This is 3.5%. And you don't have to do it as a decimal. We're pretending that we've got this empty account that we slowly put money into. So it starts off at nothing. We're going to solve for the payments. And this is it. I'm putting money into this account so I can pay off that 500 grand that I need at the end. So what's FV going to be? 500,000. And according to this, the interest-only loan and the sinking fund, is compounding monthly, and I'm making monthly deposits. So PY and CY are both 12. N is also going to be 360 because I've got 30 years monthly payments to get this sorted. So apps, finance, TVM solver, 3.5. Start off with nothing, end with 500,000. Solve for PMT. That tells me I need a deposit, negative 786.89 to 2 decimal points. So some time to get the answer for B, find the monthly deposits. So $786.89 monthly into sinking fund. That's for B. That's answer C. How much, let's say this person was doing this, how much is it going to cost in total to pay off the interest-only loan and sinking fund? Well, what number after A tells me how much interest I'm going to pay? 750,000. You know, this is monthly, but I'm going to be paying 750 grand in interest overall, plus what am I going to do to work out how much it costs me to get up to 500 grand? Is it going to cost me 500 grand to have 500 grand?
Yeah.
Or, not quite, because is the bank giving me interest here? So it's only going to cost me 360 payments of what?
786.
Yes, and that's going to be less than 500 grand. So let me make this text red again. So the cost is going to be 360 times by $786.89. So quit out of that, 750,000 plus 360 lots of 786.89. So it's going to cost me $1,033,280.40 total cost. So a couple of moments to get that down. So that's what it's going to cost me as the home loan person, the borrower, to deal with this situation. Looking at D, can anyone suggest to me how much the lender is going to get from the whole arrangement? Is it the same? Is it going to be the same as this? How much interest are they going to get from us directly? 750 grand. How much am I saving up in the interest earning account? 500,000. That's what they're going to get from the account, not just my payments. So they're going to get 750 grand plus 500 grand that I saved up by the end of 30 years. So 750,000 plus 500,000, 1.25 million. That's what the lender gets from this arrangement, even though I only actually paid this much. So get this one down, please, to lender. Can someone explain to me in E, why are the answers to C and D different? Aren't they talking about the same thing? Why are they different? In this interest earning account, to bring it up to 500,000, am I putting $500,000 of payments in there? No. So who's making up the difference? Who's giving me money for putting money in the bank? The bank. So explain why answers to C and D are different. The bank pays you interest on the sinking fund. Get that down, please. Almost done. You can see part F there already. Find out how much money is in the sinking fund after 5 years. This is the sinking fund on the graphics calculator. But that N of 360 tells me that's how much money is in the sinking fund after 30 years. What do I need to change to work out how much money is in there after 5 years? Yep, N becomes 60. And then you solve for FV. So now I can answer F in red. N equals 60 solved for FV equals 51514.64 to 2 decimal points. Couple of moments to get F. Right, and then the very last idea, and then you're going to be revising or working on your DI. What is the book value of the debt after 5 years? So let me remind you of the formula. The formula for book debt is the principal take the contents of the sinking fund. What are the contents of the sinking fund after 5 years? $51,514.64. What was the principal that I was saving up for in the first place? 500 grand. Take away 51514.64. So quit out of this. 500,000. Take 51514.64. So my book debt after 5 years after 5 years. In blue, in red, sorry. That's an interest-only loan and sinking fund question, similar to what you'll experience in your textbook and the SACE exam.